Welcome back to Shoot Me Straight. We got Tom Morton and Brandon Graves here, who are close friends of mine that live locally in the area, and they own and operate Stronghold SOF Solutions, which is a range in Defuniak. I've been working with them, I don't even know, 3-4 years now. Time goes by fast.
Mm-hmm.
Today, Dave is not with us. He decided to go on a Disney cruise, so he's either living the dream or living the nightmare. If it was me, I'd be living the nightmare. I don't know how you could stick yourself on a ship full of those
that stuff, Eddie.
Disney crazy people and have people running around, but good on him. I guess he's a better man or worse man than I am, but either way, we'll pray for him, and hopefully he gets back safe. So anyways, welcome to the podcast, and I'm glad to have you guys on. I know we've been trying to do this for quite some time, and you guys have been running and gunning with the range, so appreciate you guys taking the time to come on here, and so let's get started.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah.
Want to kick it off?
Pleasure. Yeah, you want to just dive right into the story? You wanna go into the Stronghold story? What do you think?
Let's start with either Brandon or Tom, how you got to where you are now. Let's, you can breeze over some childhood stuff, and then, Brandon, are you Green Beret?
Yep. So I am born and raised in Tallahassee, about 2.5 hours east of here. Grew up with a single mom, younger brother. Grandparents were heavily involved in my upbringing. I had a really good childhood. We not like today. When we grew up, it was four-wheelers on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
It was staying the night at a buddy's house. It was growing up at the rec park. I tell my wife all the time, these kids have no idea what it means to spend the entire weekend at the rec park living on hot dogs and hamburgers all weekend long. So that was a good childhood. Fell in love with baseball. Luckily, came out throwing left-handed, which really helped.
Said you're lefty?
Yeah. So
one
I
of,
was
one of God's chosen.
That's right.
Also a lefty.
Nice. Oh, yeah, 3
Tom.
lefties in here.
That's right. That's right.
Shit. Hopefully lightning doesn't strike.
Story on that, though, I had to teach myself how to shoot right-handed because I'm right-eye dominant as soon as I got into basics. So that's a story for another day. But and my son is not allowed to eat any breakfast or anything with his right hand. He will be left-handed. So we're going to set him up for the right path, the chosen path. So yeah, I got involved with baseball, stuck with it, played some junior college over in Tallahassee, bounced around a little bit, ended up at Valdosta State, small Division II school in South Georgia, developed 3 pitches, threw them for strikes, which was good. And one of the things I always had to do as a guy who was low to mid-80s was compete. I wasn't super athletic, didn't have all the things necessary, but was fortunate enough to have a good season. I had a couple of teammates and some really good coaches that pushed me, challenged me to develop and become a well-rounded pitcher on the mound. So was fortunate enough to play some professional baseball, and then when that wrapped up, the Giants said, "Hey, thanks but no thanks. Everyone around you is 6'5", and they all throw 95 plus. So hit the road, Jack."
There are levels to this stuff.
There are levels, like we always say. And so I quickly got situated on an X-ray contract. Wound up in basic.
What drove you to go into the military and to do the X-ray program or to become a Green Beret?
I think for me, I was hunting around. At first, I was actually sold on the SEAL route because my water comp was pretty solid. I'd spent some time in the pool and just was comfortable in the water. And we had a conversation about this the other day. And then I went into the recruiter's office, and he talked about the X-ray program and the expedited route. And you could go in enlisted and could have gone as an officer, but then you had to spend time in the regular Army and do that path. So
yeah,
I wanted to serve. I knew that I wanted to get in and get down range as quickly as possible with the top unit that I could get to as soon as I could. And so for me, that was the X-ray route. I think looking back, the time under the ruck was hard for me. Just my body, my mentality. I think I had been pampered as an athlete. This is just transparency. And so for me, sleep. We see this all the time now. Sleeping out in the woods was hard for nights on end. Being under the ruck was always a challenge. And so, we were talking about this on the way to Pensacola the other day. I think it would have been a more optimal path to maybe try the SEAL route as far as the water comp and being in the cold, which is not quite as difficult for me as it is being under the ruck and just that Army life. And so to me, it was like, I want to try to do the most difficult thing that I can. And
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah. I mean, I know I was a buzz instructor for a little bit, and I saw it when students would come through, and especially the ones that were, Division I athletes, or we even had some pro athletes, that would drop out and decide they want to be a SEAL. And surprisingly, those dudes had the hardest time because it's like you said, they were pampered. I mean, they're athletes. They're gifted, and they're treated as such growing up, and then rightly so if they, if their parents or coaches are trying to get them into the big leagues. But what I see is when they come to, selections such as like the X-ray program or BUDS, and that stress is put on them, and then they're told, you're nothing special.
Yeah.
You're just like everybody else here. You're expected to put up with all the suffering and everything else.
That's right.
They have a harder time than somebody who grew up not making the team, but kept trying to make the team. That was sort of last picked, or, but they stuck with it. Those people sort of had that grit and that resilience of like failing and having to step back in there again, which is why wrestlers do such a phenomenal job, because if they've wrestled since they were little, they're used to losing and then getting back on that mat and putting in that hard work, which is a lot of the times, I obviously haven't been to X-ray or Green Beret selection, but I'm pretty sure it's similar, where you are going to fail on purpose to see how you're going to bounce back, to see what your attitude is.
That do well.
Yeah.
I would fully agree on your assessment. I think there are certain sports backgrounds and psychologies that do better through the selection process and even into the teams. Like the wrestlers, those guys with that jiu-jitsu, that scrappy, just that scrappy mentality.
Yeah.
I think the baseball culture is one where, maybe you throw a pitch or you take a swing and you tweak a certain thing and they go, hey, take a day off, right? Let's get you right. Don't want you out there re-injuring yourself. Whereas you get in the Army and like you start cramping under the ruck, they're like, I don't give a fuck.
Nobody cares.
Right. The clock is running.
Yeah.
Right. Pick that log up and keep moving. So,
embrace the pain.
So, but yeah, that was it, man. Got in there, got through the X-ray program, met Tom. Actually, we met the first day of basic. We go all the way back, and we got a few war stories for you. We've been in trouble since day one. We appreciate the gray area when it is necessary. So yeah, man, got through there, went to Halo, Commandant's List, did really well throughout the queue as far as right time, right place, right uniform. Tried to keep a good attitude. Went to 7th Group, showed up, went to 7-3-2-4, spent a couple years on the teams. I had been through one. My starter wife, as we like to say, during my time in Fayetteville. And then, went down range, met my wife now. Had a decision to make. It was, hey, look, are you going to continue this career path and try to do the long walk, or are you going to, you want to get out and try to start the family deal? So I took the latter.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did. I've got 2 beautiful kids now.
Was that your decision to start the ladder, or was that sort of talked between you and Deanna?
No, that was my decision.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what I couldn't sort out was, if I couldn't do it one time being in the Army and with the operational load that those guys up at US SOC carry, like it's not advantageous to being home and having a successful marriage with kids. It's not impossible. I'm sure there's guys up there doing a great job. It's just really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, yeah, man. And then, got out, did things the hard way like I always like to do. Banged around for a little bit, got started at Stronghold, and then I think we can pick back up if you want to share your story.
Yeah. I think it won't come as a surprise, but Brandon and I's story is pretty similar. I also grew up in Florida, same sort of deal, camping on the weekends, playing with the kids, spending a night, doing sleepovers with your buddies. That kind of stuff. I think while in high school, I was actually really more interested in becoming an engineer. That was sort of what I'd set my path on, and I think I was a junior in anatomy class, if I recall, and we watched the towers fall. And at that moment, I was like, "Well, I'm gonna put a pause on this. I want to join the military. I want to get in the fight."
That was it, huh?
But pretty much, yeah, pretty much. So I finished out high school, and the the last year, so I still really hadn't applied to any colleges because I was pretty dead set on going into the military. And around that time, there was that Discovery Channel Class 234 Buds video with Mike Getka, right?
Yeah.
And Mike Getka happened to be a local guy in around Jacksonville. He was a mentor, and I got linked in with him, and that's pretty much what put me on the SEAL path at first. Quick side note: I was not a SEAL. Ended up being a Ranger. There's more of that story. A lot more of that.
It's
story.
actually a pretty funny and awesome story.
Yeah, maybe we can get into that. So I was dead set on going the SEAL route. My dad in particular, my mom too, but my dad in particular was like, "Listen, I get it. I support you, but you need to get your degree. You need to do it." And we fought. I mean, we really fought over that for a while. And I finally was like, "Okay, I'll do it," because there was sort of the officer route. And this is another side note. Started as an officer, ended up as enlisted. More of that story. So I was like, okay, at least I'm working towards that goal, and I can get my degree at the same time. So ended up getting into University of North Florida in Jacksonville. Was in their ROTC program, and I was sort of on the path to become a SEAL. I remember the first day I showed up there. One of the lieutenants, the counselors or whatever, was like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, I want to be a SEAL. And she literally laughed at me. She's like, "We haven't had one of those in 13 years and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, okay, well, I'll be the first one. And I was, at least first to get a slot to go to police. So I was on that path. I don't know if we want to go all the way into this story now, but short version of it was in Buds. I was there for about 12 months, 5 shallow water blackouts. I had the option to go out to the fleet, be a sailor. That was totally not interested in that, and not because I sort of an elitist mentality. It was my goal was to get into the fight, and at this point, 4 years had gone by, and I was like, I need to go.
Yeah.
So I didn't really want to go out to be into the fleet to be a sailor and then come back and try again. So I was like, okay, what else can I do? So I found a route. There's the blue to green route to go from the Navy into the Army. I went through that process. That was about another 12 months or so. And right at the last minute, they closed it to O1s and O2. So I was like, well, fuck it. I'll resign my commission and go into the Army as enlisted, which is what I did.
My man.
And I have no regrets for that decision, because I came in as an enlisted guy, a little bit older, had a little bit different perspective. I think it made me a better soldier overall.
Oh, for sure. Well, you've already had some leadership, some type of leadership training, being an officer. And then, that's, even though you didn't do your full officer duties or whatever, I mean, that's the best officers are prior enlisted, right? And then I think you might be one of the first where I'm like, good enlisted man is, you already had some leadership in you, but I don't think you were in long enough to get tainted by the officer corps.
Yeah,
which is good.
And it was apparent for all of our group in basic. Like, he showed up, and once the drill sergeants sniffed out his background, it was fucking on like Donkey Kong.
I'm sure.
They were, we're your second choice. Okay, and you're an O. Come on over here.
Yeah. They started referring to me as the Rear Admiral all the time. I was like an E4 in basic training, you know what I mean? But it was good. And so I went the infantry route, picked up an 18 X-ray contract, didn't end up becoming an SF guy, more to the story. But that's where I met Brandon. We met in basic training, became fast friends because we both basically agreed that there's a point to the rule structure, but we like to operate outside that box, and we did often.
Yeah.
And that's to our success, I would say.
I'd say to the success and to the, you've got ink on it, who dares wins, in the sense of, it's philosophical, but, if you believe and you understand the rule set that you're abiding by, it's probably the guy who has taken the time to master the skill set, who knows when it's appropriate to work outside of that skill set and outside of those rules. And in a sense of, you can go work in the gray, and we agree, as long as you come back inside the box when the work is done in the gray. And that's the concept, is we'll go play in the gray, and we have a history of it. We have a good history of it, making things happen, and then coming back inside when it's time to come back inside.
Well, that's what, special operations is bred to do. That's pretty much what differentiates us from conventional units is we are expected to think outside the box. And when rules are put on us or constrain us, it's not that we're taught to break those rules all the time, but it's like know the rules, know all of them, and then know which ones you can flex and try and push the boundaries on.
That's right.
To get the job done.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess maybe since we're talking about sort of the gray area and this sort of soft mentality, it's worth telling the story. So Brandon and I were in basic training together, and there's some, even within basic training, there's some funny stories to tell there. But 18 X-ray path, get over to Bragg. We're in sort of pre-selection, which is SOPSI. And Brandon and I did really well. What I liked about it is that the cadre there, I mean, similar to Buds, I mean, they are trying to attrite people every single day with just all sorts of diabolical schemes. And Brandon and I always came through on top, which was good. So we get into SOPSI where we go out to Camp McCall. and again, it's sort of a pre-selection. It's very similar selection, but you're kind of doing it in a pre-training version. And I can't remember if it was week 1 or week 2 or week 3, but we had like a 4-day weekend or something. Yeah. It was either a 3 or 4 day weekend. We had that final sort of safety brief. The cadre was like, "Hey, we're going to be back on Monday or Tuesday. Have your stuff in order and be prepared to form." So they left, and then we were sitting in the laundry room, and we're like, "Well, what are we going to do for the next 4 days?" And I can't remember whose idea it was first, but I was basically like, "Well, we have a map, we have a compass, we know where Southern Pines is. Why don't we just go out there and have fun for a couple days?" And that's what we did. So I learned a very valuable lesson on the circle of trust throughout the story. So it was Brandon and I, Summers, Marzi, and a couple others maybe. Yeah. So we put together this plan, snuck off post. No one was the wiser. I think we cut through the O course, over the fence, snuck past the guard gate and all that. And we were in, if you can imagine, like we're in Army PTs, and I think maybe we had a bag, and we start just running down the train tracks or walking, whatever. We got there. So I think it was like something like 6 miles. We plotted our route. We got out into town. First stop, Dollar General to pick up new clothes so we don't look like Army guys. Got a ride from a local cab driver over to a hotel. We rented a room, got some beers, had fun. We didn't do anything crazy. We're just enjoying freedom, right? Here's where the mistake comes in. So the other guys in our class kind of knew somewhat that we were going to do this. So they're like, but they were too afraid to go, right? So they're like, "Hey, if you're going to be out there, can you get me some dip? Can you get me some Gatorade, whatever, all the lickies and chewies?" And we're like, "Yeah, no problem." So we have our fun, and on the way back, we stop and get a bunch of stuff for the guys. We sneak back into post. No one's a wiser. Mission success in our mind, right? And we get back, and we start handing out all the stuff. We're sort of heroic, in a training status. And we get to Monday or Tuesday, whenever the formation was, and one of the guys who had given dip to left it out on the table right next to the formation. Instructors are like, "What the hell is this?" They start interrogating everybody. Everybody buckles under the pressure. And
drowning rats.
Yeah, they start pointing fingers. I get wrapped up into that. And long story short, there was myself and Matt Summers and a couple others who basically they're like, the deal was, if you rat on this guy, we'll let you roll to the next class. And I was like, well, he didn't do it, and I don't know who did it, right? So they're like, all right, you're out of here, right? So
that was after they tortured us for 3 weeks.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so we got hemmed up. Oh yeah, here's another part of the story. So in selection, they do peer evals. So at the end of the course, you as an individual fill out a pink slip and a blue slip. A pink slip is basically, I will never go to war with this guy for this reason. A blue slip is, I will go to war with this guy. Like, this is the guy. Right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember how many. Everybody knew I got wrapped up into that, so they tried to save me by writing all the blue slips for me. Instructors in the front rip it all up, and they're like, do them again. So I knew my fate was sealed at that point.
What year? What year was this?
12.
12?
Yeah,
Yeah.
early 12.
Yep. So I had to go sit in front of the academic review board. I already knew my fate. I made my case. I was like, basically what I said was, the mentality you guys are trying to breed here is thinking outside the box, the gray zone. I didn't hurt anybody. And the most important thing is I didn't roll over on my peers. And I was like, I disagree with that you're kicking out the guys who didn't roll over and saving the ones who did. So I kind of, obviously I wish I would have stayed, but I left knowing that I thought I did the right thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously you've told me this story before, and it's, to me, that sets such a bad precedent for the community. Mm-hmm. Like, you're expected to, like you said, think outside the box. And not only that, you guys went out and got stuff for your teammates, right, that were in the field, right or wrong. But you get caught, they got caught and you get pulled in. For me, if I was an instructor, yes, I would probably punish the shit out of you, physically. Be like, okay, dude, you got caught. Rule number 1, don't get caught. But when you do, take the punishment. Yep. But to kick you completely out of the course and then, save the guys that were snitches, it's like, well, that's who you're sending out to the teams. That's right. Is guys that'll roll over on their buddies. Like, you think this is the last time something like this is going to happen, where somebody, breaks the rules a little bit? It's a shameful thing that happened to you. But I mean, although you continue, I know it ended up working out.
Yeah, so hopefully I'm not coming off as I'm complaining, because it's just part of the story.
No.
I have no regrets. I'm actually really happy in hindsight that this happened, right? So what was the result? I think I got orders to go to the 82nd. It was some obscure route clearance platoon. Like, the job was to clear IEDs, and I was like, I don't want to be a part of that unit. But
no thanks.
More importantly, I really still wanted to be in SOF in some capacity. So I was like, well, what's my other option? And the truth is, had I known this in the beginning, I may have gone straight to this route. But I learned about the 75th Ranger Regiment and what they do, and they're just super grunts, essentially. At least at that time, right? They've kind of molded more into a true SOF unit since then. But again, this is kind of strange. As an E4, I called up Branch, and I was like, hey, I have these orders, but I really want to get a RASP contract. And they allowed it. Somehow I was able to swing that as an E4. So they wrote me orders to go to RASP. I showed up to RASP, went through that pipeline. At that point, I had been through 2 different selections, so I really kind of knew the game at that point. So I just kept my head down, mouth shut. I was like, the goal was, don't get in trouble, just get through. Yeah. Right. So I got through.
Sounds like prison. Just got to get out of here.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. So I got through it with, did well. I was able, at the end of it, there's kind of like in BUDS where it sort of pays to be a winner. So if you hit certain performance metrics throughout RAS, you get to choose which battalion you go to, at least at the time. So they gave me the ability to choose. I went to 1st Battalion, which is in Savannah, Georgia, which, as far as Army bases goes, is pretty nice. Most of the time, Army bases are in the middle.
Yeah, you're next to Savannah. I mean, You can't beat that.
Yeah. So I got there. Again, I was there. It was a little bit of a culture shock, because prior a little bit older. I'm now a 27-year-old E4. My team leaders are 22-year-old fire-breathing, team leaders, and so I had to keep my head down for a little bit. I got a lot of shit, because once people learned my story, they're like, "Oh, so we were your third option," you know what I mean? So I had to deal with that a little bit, but did well. And the reason why I don't really have any regrets is, fortunately, the op tempo at Ranger Regiment was high, so we would deploy every single year for 4 months or so. So I got a lot of good combat reps.
A lot of reps. Yeah.
So that kind of brings us to today, but sort of a bumpy path to get there. But
I mean, it's probably one of the more interesting and funnier stories I've heard, because you've literally did the tour of SOF, right? BUDS, Green Beret, and then Ranger. I mean, it's like the only thing you just needed to go to the Air Force and do PJs and CCT. I think you'd be a well-rounded individual. But no, that is funny, and you know, after we've been working together, and I always like, because we did some work with Rangers downrange, but you don't really like get to know them, right? You're just like, hey, we're going on this op together. It's like, all right, take it out. But after working with obviously guys at the range and everything, yeah, Rangers are a squared away dude, a squared away Ranger, which we have at the range that instructs, is like it's like a Marine with better gear. Right, they have all of the gear and everything, but they are, because I have an affinity for the Marine Corps. Obviously, I've said that. Like they're the ones who raised me. They are super squared away on everything they do, and I'm talking about a good Marine. And then it's the same with the Ranger. Like they are to a T. Like they can sit there and recite everything verbatim. So yeah, I think it ended up working out for you for sure, like you said.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can see that when you get to the ODAs too. It's pretty obvious who spent time in regiment prior to coming to group. So it's a bit of it's a different total approach to how you do your work, how you problem solve, how you communicate, your intent when you go down range. You can see the guys who came from regiment.
They're
a little they're squared away, a little wound tight.
A little wound tight for sure. Yeah,
but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting to look at the culture. Even in my time there's been a transition from sort of the guide-bearing, standard-bearing, you know, super by-the-book Ranger to what they are today, which is, I would say, more closer on the spectrum to the ODAs and the SEALs than maybe 20 years ago. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but the culture's definitely shifted.
I think it's a good thing. You know, that 20 years of war, that was the golden era of SOF. I mean, and we were all a part of it, and I think you saw different branches and units evolve into what they are now. Because, I mean, I think before the war started, each unit and branch had their own specific job, and like, this is what, you know, Rangers, we do airfield seizures, and then Green Berets, you know, by, with, and through, and then SEALs are like, we do DAs. And 10 years into the war, we all started sort of doing each other's job. It started like melding in, which at the time was sort of frustrating, right? Because, I mean, for us, we ended up doing VSO and then sort of taking on this Green Beret mission where we were taking out commandos and everything. And believe me, we weren't happy about it. And I saw Green Berets sort of take our position, and they were going out doing DAs and disruption ops. And then you see, you know, like you said, the Rangers have sort of transformed from that regimented, like you said, guide bearing, like but left, right, left, into they're like thinking shooters. And, you know, I see it now with the guys that are instructing. I'm actually like impressed with the amount of stuff that they know on how to, you know, plan an op, brief an op, and everything like that. It's all very similar, and I think that is part of the golden era of SOF, where we all sort of melded together and learned how to do each other's jobs, and it forced us to sort of think outside what our own specific job requirements are, which is, I think, is a good thing. I mean, there's always pros and cons to everything that happens, but at the end of the day, it makes the special operations unit that much more capable, right?
Yeah, I think it's a test. I mean, truly, as I think about it, I totally agree with you. Even we ended up taking on a FID mission, which I was like, holy, what? I was like, there's guys for this, you know? But I think it's a testament to the SOF culture, right? Is that we can mold and adapt to whatever is required. And to your point about the golden era of SOF, I think that's really what we proved, is that we are a tool for anything that is needed.
Yeah, multi-tool.
Yeah,
for sure. And that there's cons to that as well. You know, I remember arguing when we were taking on the VSO mission, which it was when the coin strategy came out, which was complete horse shit. Like, to me, I was like this, because we were going out doing DAs for 4 months, and then they were like, all right, now you're going to stop doing that, and you're going to go live amongst the people that you've been kicking down doors and fucking up their, you know, life.
Yeah.
And you want you to make friends with them now and tell them to trust you. And I was like, this has to be the most backwards thing. And I remember telling some of them, like, because they were like, well, and, you know, we're like, this is a Green Beret mission. Like, this is what they are trained to do. And they're like, well, we can do it better. So you're going to go out there and do it. And I'm like, just because, you know, we can do anything better. Like, you want me to go clean the shitters, like, yes, I can do a 100% job. That doesn't mean we should be doing that job. But
that's a direct result. Those are the third and fourth order effects of getting into a conflict and then not having an exit strategy.
Well, yeah,
So
and that's a whole.
Here we are. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to try to rebuild this place. It's like, no, this has never worked. Stop trying it.
Yeah, I think the whole coin strategy thing is a prime example of the disconnect between the strategic level and the tactical level, right? Like, I think if you were to propose the coin strategy to really anybody on the ground, they're going to raise their eyebrows at a minimum, right? They're going to be like, wait, what are we doing? But at the strategic level, on paper, it sounds great. But I think, the idea that we are going to convert a bunch of people that have thousands of years of history and culture, and not to mention each village is isolated from each other. So you might have success over here, but 5 miles away, these guys are not going to know anything about it, right? So it was sort of one of those things and again, it's easy to say in hindsight, but it was sort of doomed.
Yeah, everything is definitely in hindsight, and we all took part in it, and we all did what we were told and tried to do it to the best of our ability. But, hindsight, it's like how it just showed how arrogant and elitist we are as a country to sit there and be like, oh, no, you'll adapt what we have, and it's better. And they wanted us to go out there and sell that to these people, and those people don't want anything to do with what we have. Mm-hmm. They're like, we have our way here, and to us, it's sort of like savage. We're like, dude, they live like this, but that's the way they want to live. And to try and get us to like enforce our values and everything, American values on them, and also we're losing lives, American lives while doing it. It was frustrating to say the least.
Yeah,
right.
And let's see the downstream effects of doing that. Now we've been, and not that we can't walk and chew gum at the same time, but we're overseas doing certain things with a focus on foreign policy, and now our southern border is an absolute mess, and we basically let the interior of the United States slowly fall apart. We've lost our culture. We've lost our way. And so this is the natural order of things. When you get hyper-focused on a 20-year war and the military-industrial complex comes into play, which we play a very, very small part of that. And we can talk about our philosophy a little bit later. But, perpetual war is not good for America.
No.
I mean, I get it. There are battles and wars that need to be fought, but at the end of the day, put your house in order.
Exactly.
We got to put our house in order before we start, fucking with other people on the other side of the world.
Yep. Unfortunately, though, it's a business.
Yeah.
It's not about a righteous, right or wrong thing, which is what we were sold at the beginning when 9/11 happened, and I think everybody was on board, including myself. Yep. But then as you do the war long enough, you realize real quick, and now, guys knew it 2010. It's like, we're not trying to win. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to set in place, and so the military-industrial complex can just keep banking and making millions. Yep. And I think the military-industrial complex got a good taste of that over the past 20 years, and they're not trying to let that go. No. They're like, if there's a conflict, let's get involved. Let's start doing.
Today. Yeah, we're trying to tie, southern border funds to a package deal that equates to $1 billion in Israel money, and it's like these things are part and parcel. Yeah. We should be discussing these independently and funding them independently. They are not the same problem.
Exactly.
I think the Afghanistan stuff would have been a lot easier for me to accept if it wasn't for the withdrawal debacle, right? So if someone would have said to me, hey, because we all started, like you said, with this sort of righteous intent, and things change over time. But I do believe most people had that mindset when we first started this. And then you spend a lot of time over there and you get to see behind the curtain and you find that there's other agendas going on. But if someone would have said to me, hey, listen, we're fighting to establish a foothold here in the Middle East so that we can force project from here on out, i.e. we maintain a presence at BAF forever, right, so that we are positioned to deal with any other Middle Eastern enemies in the future, I think I probably could have got behind that, but we basically gave all of that up, right, when we withdrew from Afghanistan. So any ground that we had gained, through the lives lost and the time spent, we lost. We just gave it up. And that, to me, that's what's so frustrating about the GWOT is I'm not sure that we did anything that's lasting. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I don't think we haven't won a war since World War II.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one thing. It's like we go in, kick ass for a bit, and then we're like, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
Like, that's it, you know. And I think the world sees it, you know, and that Afghan withdrawal was a primary example of exactly what we've been doing since World War II. And I think our allies and everybody have to be like, whoa, what is the purpose then?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Again, downstream effects, any partner nation is going to look at that and go, man, if that's how they rolled out of Afghanistan, what's the U.S. going to do with us when shit gets nasty, right? They'll do the same thing to us. Yeah. So
yeah, we set a bad precedent, you know. But we'll see where that goes. You know, hopefully, and that's why I think there needs to be a lull in combat and warfare a little bit. We need to get our own house in order,
right,
and then rebuild, and hopefully, you know, and I say that sparingly, but like learn from our mistakes and don't do them again.
Yeah.
Like look at history and be like, this does not work, right?
That's a good segue. So I'm going to shift gears and we'll go into a little bit about Stronghold.
Yeah.
And
so,
you know what's cool about his story is he got a good perspective on all the different branches as far as the process, the culture, the verbiage, all those things. So when we got busy on Stronghold, you know, with anything, it just takes time. That sales cycle for anything DoD, anything that has to do with our industry is just long. With most industries. But I'll tell you what we've done is I think we've tried to be very intentional about the problem set that we want to solve. And as we look at the situation within the situation, and that what's going on in D.C. it's not good, right? We're headed in a direction that doesn't really fit the bill for what we want. Now, as Floridians, probably biased here, but we had a taste of Trump, and then we've had what I would call probably the greatest governor of our time lead the state of Florida. And, you know, full transparency, huge supporter because he leads from the front. He never wavers. He does the things that are necessary to break the backs of those that would come against the freedoms and the individual liberties that Floridians voted for.
I think simply put, to your point, I think what's so great about DeSantis is he actually does what he says he's going to do.
And we say that often, right, which is his video matches his audio. Right, there's no discrepancy between what he says and what he does. It's very hard to put a line between those two. Yeah. And so we looked at it and we said, okay, we're Floridians. We're in the Panhandle. We built our facility. We've got a nice book of past performance. And when he came across the television and said, hey, look, I'm gonna bring to life the Florida State Guard. This is my intention for it. I think these are some of the ways that we can use it. We said, man, this looks like a good opportunity to put prior special operators to work. And so Tom and I locked ourselves in the office. We put together a proposal that said, hey, look, we think the state of Florida has a real asset on the books that's not being used, and these are veteran special operators. Shoot, we know a couple hundred in the Florida Panhandle. Guys are spread out throughout Miami, Tampa, Jacksonville, across the state with solid backgrounds. Why don't we put these guys to work as volunteers for the state of Florida? And so, long story short, with a lot of headaches and a ton of crap to cut through, as with anything, anything that you want to tackle that's new and hard, it's part of the deal. If you sign up to do a hard thing, just know there are going to be things inside that box of hard that you just don't want to do. Yeah. And there's bureaucracy, there's paperwork, there's meetings, there's sales, everything that you can imagine with that's a problem and I'd like to solve it. Just be prepared to have a litany of things that you're going to have to do that you don't want to do. And I think that's one of the things. So we've identified that we want to serve the state. And we're very excited about a coalition of governors across the nation that are now supporting Governor Abbott and what's going on the border. Mm-hmm. Federal government has decided to not do what it's supposed to do. Texas has taken it upon themselves. Now we're in litigation. But what we're seeing is a coalition of governors across the nation that have said, hey, if the federal government's not going to get this figured out, we'll take it upon ourselves. And we're excited about that because we think that's a good opportunity to help these guys stand up. Every state should stand up their own volunteer group of special operators. We have veterans across the nation that come out of all the branches of the special operations community that would love to go to work and do a good thing, whether it be in their own state after a man-made or natural disaster, or if they go down to the border and help Texas figure things out and sort out that problem. And so that's where we've shifted gears and said, hey, let's take a step back while obviously we continue to serve the DOD and you know, that's a staple in our business, and that's one of the things that we're going to eat on and live by as far as driving home those fundamentals and training the new guys that don't have that GWAT experience, right? And we talk about that gap too. There's a gap between GWAT vets who have that real-world experience, and the new guys that are coming in, we're going to have a gap of information and experience, and so there's opportunity there. But going back to the states, we really like the idea, and we believe that if we will support at the state level, it's going to back the federal government into a corner to do the right thing, or we're going to take it and do the right thing ourselves. So that's the story of how we got involved with the State Guard. Those are the wave tops, and I thought it was worth sharing today. I think what we've tried to do is be professional and stay as quiet as we can about that. But the bottom line is that we put on a good POI. We built the POI. We've worked hand in hand with the guys over in Tallahassee that are working their butts off on weekends, Saturday night calls at 6 p.m., Sunday morning calls, you name it. We're working hand in hand to make sure that this organization is stood up and that they're equipped, validated, trained, they're willing, capable, able, good teammates. We've assessed, the special operators that we're going to, the veteran special operators that we're going to probably send to the border on both hard and soft skills. So we're excited about packaging up what we've done and getting this in the hands of other lawmakers across the nation.
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Brandon said, I think part of the reason why we are so excited about sort of what we're doing at Stronghold, and specifically as it relates to the Florida State Guard, is there's a couple philosophies that are really good that I think that we're supporting. One, and some of them we've already talked about. So the idea of getting your house in order, right? So I think part of what the Florida State Guard is doing is making sure that the interior is safe and secure, and it continues to be a good place to live for Floridians. I think another concept that we're also supporting is, like you said, we have a bunch of ex-SOF guys who just spent the last 20 years honing a myriad of skills, and they want to be able to use those skills, and they want to have a purpose on for using those skills. So we're recruiting these guys to help us with this program. So I think that's another really good thing. And then I think the third thing is sort of the spirit of federalism, right? So what we're seeing is the federal government is not doing a particularly good job at the border at the moment. And so the spirit of federalism is letting the states handle their business, right? And so that's something that I think we're supporting. And what's really cool to see is that it's not just Texas alone anymore. It's Florida, Texas, Tennessee, all of these other states that have kind of thrown their hat into the ring, like, hey, we're going to help them out. And I think that is one of the core tenets of America, is this federalist idea.
Yeah, and I mean, I interested on your thoughts on this, but I think that whole spirit was lost for a while, right? Because everyone was so dependent on the federal government, and like they're running the show until COVID happened. Mm-hmm. And I think the man, Ronnie, set the example of like, nope, we're not playing that game. I'm running my state the way I want to run it. Mm-hmm. I believe Texas, did the same, tried to do the same thing. And I think, obviously during that time, Florida and Texas and whatever state was like kept open were demonized, of course, by the government, by the federal government, by the media. Yep. And the truth came out. It's like, nope, this whole thing was, COVID is real, but it's a flu. And the way that you weaponized it was it was a sham on the whole country. But these states held up.
That's right.
And did the right thing and did not listen to all the BS. And I think other states, it only takes one.
Yep.
It only takes one person to stand up and do the right thing, and others will follow.
That's right.
And I think that's what these other states are doing now. They're like, oh, all right, yeah, we don't need to depend on the federal government. We can start our own thing here. And I think you guys are at the precipice of like starting that with Stronghold and standing up these special operations units,
Yeah.
That
another philosophy that we built on, and you can probably recall these conversations we had early, which is when you have a wide variety of assets to choose from, albeit a SEAL, an SF guy, a Ranger, a PJ, a combat controller, Marine special ops guys, there's a certain flavor and mentality that comes to that. When you throw all these guys together, and we talked about this, right, you're going to have conflicting ideas. And this is the concept here pulled straight out of, Dalio's book, which is we just want the best answer to come forward, right? So if Unit X has a certain way of doing this, and the mission calls for a certain type of detail, you need to be thoughtful. You need to have open dialogue. You need to add in all of the past experience, and then you need to agree upon and come to the best answer. And if you read the governor's book and you take a look at how he begins to lead and problem solve, it's what he does to a T. He sits down at a table with a group of subject matter experts, and they dialogue it out. They ask hard questions. They poke holes. They reference. They ensure that what they have is the truth, and then they look around the table and they go, that's the best answer. We're going to do that. And everybody is going to, there. You may disagree. There may be guys that disagree, but the leader, depending on how his decision matrix is set up, is going to go, you can disagree, but you're going to support.
Yeah.
Right? And we talked about that too. That's one thing that Bezos talks about is you and I can disagree that, Group X needs tactic Y, and you go, no, they need tactic Z. And we all look around, and depending on that decision-making matrix, the final answer is this. You get in line and you support it. And I think that's what the governor does so well, and some of the other top leadership across the country at that governorship level is, again, they arrive at the best answer, and they go, we're going this direction, everyone get in line. Yeah. And you see that out of Tallahassee. When the governor says it and he's made his decision, the troops get in line and they support it. They may not fully agree, but they get in line and they support it. And that's what you have to do at the highest level.
Well, that's having a team.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? You don't have a team if you have people, because you're always going to have people that disagree. It does not matter. That's the curse of leadership,
should
right?
Have people that disagree.
Yeah, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is a decision that's happening. You can either get behind it or you can leave, because you are not going to be the toxic element in this group that's going to cause, all sorts of BS along the way as we're trying to accomplish what our mission is.
Yeah.
And I think, that's sort of, we ran the 4 2-week courses, Florida State Guard there. And that was the big thing with that curriculum. Obviously it was, we covered all the basics during that thing. Can you shoot? Can you handle weapons safely? Can you think, under stress? But what we were assessing is, because we had different dudes from different branches, is, can you act as a team, and can you set your ego aside, and can you be mature enough to work with others, right? And that was my big thing when we were assessing them. Like, I'm like, great, you can shoot. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you can do this. But can you work together cohesively as a unit and not let your ego get in the way? And also, are you mature enough that we can go send you to do these things and not cause a media storm of crap that eventually, we live in a political world or a political country where it's very divisive. So it only takes one incident.
That's right.
And the whole, they'll demonize the whole thing.
That's right. And that's one of the things that when we made those assessments on the soft skills was, when you go downrange or whatever you do in the state of Florida, you not only represent the governor, you represent the state of Florida, you represent your community, you represent your family, your last name, and you represent your kids. So just understand, when you get out there, and if you're not on your P's and Q's and you're not being a good ambassador for the mission that we're doing, just understand that, again, those are downstream effects that the next generation is going to wear because it was your last name in the state of Florida. And you could cost this entire program everything that we put into it in one act. Yeah,
and I think we, not to pat ourselves on the back, but I think we did a good job for what we were given. I think the FMPs that we put on, especially like that last one, was really crucial. I mean, we put the stress on them, but it was to train them like, you guys are used to escalating, right? Go overseas. Right. That's what you do. It's like, oh, if the enemy escalates, it's like, sick. Now we're about to escalate even more because that's our job. But now it's like, no, your job is to de-escalate as much as possible. And then at the very last moment, if you have to, escalate the situation. But that is like the last thing that you want to do, right? Yeah. And I think guys got a glimpse of that during those FMPs, and they're, and I think each group, like 90% of them failed the first FMP because they're like, oh, shit. Yeah. And it's like, yep, like, now let's do it again. And, they all crushed it, but it sort of put them in that mindset. Like, this is what you guys are going to be going to do. Not going, kicking down doors, shooting bad guys in the face. Yeah. And now you're there to save people, do whatever task is put in front of you.
That's right.
But then you are also prepared to escalate if need be.
Yeah.
You're right.
I think, yeah, the FMPs really put a pin in what's so interesting and exciting about this concept. And there's a couple things. So first of all, kind of like we talked about, we have a bunch of different SOF guys from different branches that all have their way of doing things. And you can see that in the beginning of the course, right? That, you know, I'm a high port guy or I'm a low port guy or whatever.
Yeah. That's not the way we do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, right.
And you remember when we were in, like, I never went and did CQB training with SEALs, and SEALs didn't do CQB training with ODAs. We had our way, right? What was so cool about it, having all of these different perspectives, is, like Brandon said, the good idea rises to the top. And that, and in my opinion, that was exemplified in the FMPs, right? Because we had 20 different guys from different SOF units that had to plan a mission, and they had to execute it based on the best idea. Also, a testament to the SOF mentality, kind of like what we were talking about earlier about the ability to adapt, right? So we're basically like, hey, I know what you guys did for the last 20 years, escalate, escalate, escalate. I want you to do the opposite of that now. And they were able to do it, right? And so again, I just think that what's so powerful about what we've done here is that we've got the right guys with the right tools and the right position to do good things for the state of Florida and others, right? So
as you can see, it's going to that. What because I know we sort of skipped over, we went right to Florida State Guard, which is awesome. Why did you want to start the range? Like, what gave you the vision to start Stronghold? Because I'm thankful for it. Like, I moved out here before that place was even built, and through Jim Hood invited me out to, like, sort of look at the landscape, and we all sort of, like, put our heads together and help design some of that range.
Well, it actually it was born out of necessity. So my old warrant and I were sitting in Columbia, and it was advantageous. We could walk 100 meters through the wood line, and we had everything we needed in a little area called Melgar. And so we said, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we could just have a facility to get everything done, and we could do all the training, and there's no range-isms, there's no bureaucracy. We actually have access to it.
Walk out of the team room straight to the range.
Yep.
Yeah. And in theory, that works out up at group, but the reality of it is that you have a whole host of ODAs that are fighting for limited resources, and little known fact is that we lease our space from Eglin, and so it's kind of like having a tenant on your property that you really don't appreciate too much.
Yeah.
So that was the concept of it, and then a couple things unfolded. As I decided to get out, I was in that spiral that most of us are in for a season, which is, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? I got a new wife, got pregnant right out of the gate, no health care, making nothing. I was pulling Cat 5 cable through walls, through existing structure, helping my buddy with his IT company on the weekends. So I was putting it together like most guys, and then I said, man, I should put pen to paper, which is another lesson learned. Tom and I talk about this all the time. It's one thing to have the right answer and or a good solid idea that could go out. It's another thing to put it on paper and slide it in front of people, and then be able to articulate the why behind the why and give your 2-minute elevator pitch on why they should be interested in what it is you're sharing with them, and they quickly identify that you've taken time to put it on paper. So long story long, got with a buddy of mine who's a general contractor and said, hey, I have this concept. I think that there's a need for this. I think that the market is there. I don't know if the timing's right, but if we can build it and stay alive long enough, because I had an inkling that the GWAT was going to begin to whittle down, and those funds were going to start to dissipate and slowly go away. And that was a correct analysis there. Although we have been able to do what we're supposed to do, which is drive revenue and stay alive, and not only stay alive and thrive. But so we fought and clawed. Full transparency, Walton County wanted nothing to do with a facility that offered special operators, law enforcement, SWAT, an opportunity to come train with the concept. Had the live fire shoot house, we had the clubhouse, everything you see out there. We've since added the bunker, and we've since come to pursue our airspace, and now we have controlled airspace for kinetic drone training. So all those things took time, And I bit off more than I could chew. I learned lessons I never knew that I was going to sign up for, like how does a development order work? How does stormwater work? What does an easement look like when you buy property? What does it look like when you go to the closing table and sign closing documents? And we had to find an investor. So I had to go pitch who's now a good friend of mine and super wealthy guy. Wealth starts with a B. Strong personality, ask hard questions, and had to fight and claw through those things. But I knew that the concept that I had, and Tom and I talk about this a lot, was I recognized that there were a ton of training companies, guys who had skill sets. You could throw a rock and hit two guys that stood up a company, but where were the facilities? It was the Amazon Walmart model, right? Amazon had stood up a website, and they were catching Walmart. Walmart had a dog shit website, and they had all the facilities nationwide and worldwide. And so it was, well, what if we build the facility, and then we'll have all the guys come in and bring their training and their POIs, and we'll just play landlord. We'll build the facility appropriately. So that was phase one of our initial plan. So let me back up here, and I'll bring this thing full circle. As I'm fighting and clawing through, anytime you're at zero, it's really hard. It's like, which direction do I go? Your directions are infinitely. You could choose any direction and go in it. And one of the things I wanted to stiff arm was civilians and two-gun stuff. And that was hard, man, because that money was fast, and it was there, and it was easy. But I think one of the beliefs that I had was that's going to dissuade DOD contracts. That's going to dissuade real Tier 1 and Tier 2 teams that want to come in and have full access to a facility with privacy and do the things they need to do.
Yeah.
So for months, we waited, and as we developed the property over about a 2-year period, we had opportunities to bring in small groups and do these things, and I just said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to wait. We're going to be patient. We're going to build a book of business. Tom got involved. He was actually over in California, and I knew he was the right guy. It was I knew we had our background. We had met that first day of basic. We had like minds, and he was spending time in the defense industry. And to me, that was the best indicator, as he was driving business and writing proposals and understood the acquisition process for a DOD company out, a defense company out in California. And I said, man, if we could put this thing together and you can get out here, we could rock and roll. It'd be you and I. I've got a financial backer who totally stays out of the way. He's got our back. He's going to stay patient with us. The facility's almost finished. Why don't you come out here? And so we probably did 4, 5, 6 flybacks, started working remote, making phone calls, doing those things from 0 to 1, which is the hardest part. Mm-hmm. No products. We had no products whatsoever. We didn't know how to price. We had no idea, but we knew that we were going to head that direction. Yeah. And that's what we did. Got him moved over here. We both did the whole deal where, full transparency, we were moonlighting. I had a full-time job while I developed the property. I would wake up living in Destin, and I'd pack 2 or 3 meals. I'd head to the facility. I'd get on heavy equipment. I'd be working with my headphones on, running heavy equipment, pushing dirt, running phone calls with my other job. I'm not going to mention the employer. And then Tom was doing the same thing. He got over here. We got him lined up with a job, moonlighting, working both ends of it, and then staying true and just working long hours and taking that thing from 0 to 1, like we always say, which is the hardest part. I'll say that again. Now we got a good book of business. Our products are built. Our pricing's in line. Getting ready to get on the GSA schedule. We've got state past performance. We've got DOD past performance. We're looking at pursuing some IDIQ work as a prime. We've invested in GovWin. We've invested in a director of operations. So we hit the ground running, and I think that the thing that we stayed true to was we're going to pick a meaningful problem and a hard problem that nobody else wants to go after, and we're going to go do it. And that's exactly when people say, well, what is Stronghold? What separates you guys? I go, think of the nastiest problem that you think needs to be solved. We're probably strategizing on how to start attacking it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I would add to what you said, which is true, is it's not, we're not trying to dismiss the civilian market or the two-gun market. It's one of our core fundamental beliefs is that we have the luxury of having, nearly 20 years of GWAT experience, and we know that there is a gap between most of the guys who've gotten out and the guys who are in, and we want to be able to pass the torch.
For sure.
Right? And we want to be able to transfer that knowledge down to, where we came from. And so it's not that we are dismissive of the civilian market. It's that we know that if we want to be able to pass as much knowledge as possible to the DoD market, we need to stay focused and prioritize them. And then maybe there's a time in the future where we grow into.
Yeah, and to the contrary of dismissing, the intent in it is, okay, let's go do the thing that's necessary first to create that flywheel of revenue, which makes us a healthy business, right? And then we don't have to be so concerned about next month's revenue.
Yeah.
We've now won a large enough contract vehicle that takes care of us and our team. Our facilities are full. And then our plan is we're going to look at some acreage that's around us as we begin to expand and likely open that up to that two-gun community. And then likely open that up to some of the customers that we've been sort of keeping at bay, because the idea was, let's get this foundation poured and then we'll build the house on top of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
focus on one thing first, and then, which is what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Because if you focus on everything, you're going to spread yourselves thin, and then
Bingo.
nothing gets done.
Bingo.
Right? Everything gets done half-assed.
That's right.
Yeah. So I completely understand that the way you guys are going about it.
Yeah.
And it's, we've seen it's worked. I mean, I remember, how long has it been open now? Like, this is third year?
We officially opened in November of 21, so we're just over
time
2
flies,
years,
dude.
2 years
I'm like,
3 months.
I have a hard time thinking back, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even within the first year it opened, like you said, it was like sort of dry. You're like, what's going on here?
Yeah. People say if you build it, they'll come. And we built it, and we're like.
And I couldn't, it was blowing my mind, because we were going out telling everybody, like, dude, and I was telling, my buddies that were still in, like, bro, you need to come see this facility. But then you're also fighting against the military cutbacks, the funding, and they're like, dude, there's no funding right now to go do any extra training.
And I think that's a good. I'm glad you said that, because that's another reason why I'm really optimistic. Is we may have built it at the exact worst time.
100%.
I think so, but I think that's a
Timing
good
was
thing,
awful.
though. I think you guys have struggled through the worst of it,
Exactly.
and now you're starting to see everything come to fruition. Which, I mean, this year alone, and just last year, it's starting to pour in. Word's starting to get passed. I mean, we've put through DoD units, and I'll double tap on that. There is from what I've seen of units coming through and that we've trained for DoD, there is a loss of soldiering skills, big time. Right? You see these units come through, and you're like, hey, all right, this is what we're going to go over, which is basic soldiering skills, and each one, yeah, we know how to do that, and then when you put them to it, they don't know how to do it, and it's like, because they don't have the experience above them showing them the right way.
Yeah.
It's sort of like everything is online classes almost, where you're like, you said you could do this, and we had that one group admit that. They were like, oh no, well, I got the certificate online to do land nav, or to do the stuff you're supposed to be doing hands-on out there in the field, learning how to do these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the range it's gonna flourish, and I think the more word gets passed, that you have a bunch of retired special operators working there from different branches, which is I think the premier thing, right? Because we all come from different backgrounds, and we all have our knowledge and experience, and that we all want to pass off, but we're all able to work together.
Yeah.
And we're not sitting there like, my way's the best or this way's the best. I mean, it's really a cohesive unit that works there. That's like, hey, all right, let's do this. It's, we've shown that, I think, especially with the Florida State Guard curriculum that we put together. There's different bits and pieces from each unit and tests and everything in there. So it's been cool.
Yeah, it's very democratic. That's one of the most enjoyable things for me to watch, is as I watch you and Jeff and Goat and everybody kind of hash out, what if we do it this way? What if we do it that way? And then really what ends up happening is, let's just try it. Did it work? Did it not work? If it works, that's what we're going with, right? So again, the cream rises to the top as far as the economy of ideas goes around there. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, and the other thing is, unintended consequence here is that we are staying in community with each other. You know,
Yeah.
I think what we see in our world is SOF guys typically are strong-willed, strong-minded, very independent, good at solving their own set of problems. I think Stronghold is a place named appropriately where we can all convene. You know,
Oh,
we
for
use
sure.
it for all the different reasons, and it's a place for us to come together and spend time and be amongst each other and stay in community.
Well, yeah, and it's like what we're missing. So it's the one big thing that most veterans, especially from the SOF community, miss. It's that team room mentality. Like I miss going to the team room and just being amongst the boys and saying whatever I feel like I want to say and not getting, any shit for it. Not worried about hurting feelings and just sort of being able to go there, vent, release some things. And that's what we have there.
Yep.
Is everybody just loves being around the
Yeah.
boys again, and we're actually have a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. We're not just hanging out and then, all right, that was it. We have a purpose that we're striving towards, which is very similar to the teams.
Yep.
Right.
Meaningful work, meaningful relationships, and that's our job. Leading Stronghold is to make sure that the correct problems, are identified, and that we pursue those problem sets with a real answer, and to make sure that the work comes in, and that people understand that we're going to put together proposals and we're going to present them with answers that are probably right, and then put the guys to work.
Yeah.
Put all of our butts to work and make sure that we're, again, coming together for the best answer, and then implementing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad that Stronghold's here. I mean, it's been a huge blessing just to have that range and be able to work there and be with you guys and all the other dudes that work there. I mean, it's for me. My goal when I got out was I don't want to travel anymore. Like, I mean, I'll go travel to work. You got to do what you got to do to make the money and
That's right.
provide for the family. But I was like, I want something stable that I can go do what I got to do, and then I can be home at night. And that's what that's provided. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a huge blessing on me and my family.
And
so.
Eddie, that's that's the goal for us as we continue to grow is, perhaps we go after work that isn't sexy. Perhaps we go after work that requires a PM and requires butts and seats to do things that, like I said, are not sexy, but keeps guys local. There's a ton of guys in the Freeport, Defuniak, Santa Rosa Beach, Niceville, Fort Walton Beach area that are like, God, I wish I could stay here, but works has me taken. I got to go to Virginia, or I've got to go, overseas, Oconus, whatever the case may be. And shoot, we know there's guys in my neighborhood that are like, I need you guys to get it figured out so I can join the team. And I'm like, we're working on it.
Yeah. Patience.
That's
right.
it.
And that's just all it is being patient. And I think you guys have done an extraordinary job doing that. Like pushing through, like Tom said, you probably opened up at the worst time.
Yeah.
But you guys have like pushed through that and shown your grit and resilience and like really your passion for your dream, which is, it's few and far between nowadays. You have people that would just probably up and quit and be like, this isn't working. I'm going to do something else. But you guys stuck with it.
That's right.
Yeah. It's been awesome to see.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I think just as a testament to what we're talking about, it was maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I was in my truck driving to work, and I'm sure any listener would know the feeling of like when you're going to a job that you just don't really want to do, there's a little bit of a sense of dread. It was the opposite. I was like actually excited to go to work, and that's why, again, I'm so optimistic about Stronghold of what we've created. We've created this environment for guys like us to flourish and thrive and have fun.
I have the same, like pulling into that gate, going down that dirt road to the range. I'm like happy to be there.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, okay. It's almost like it's, second home. Like, all right, we're here. I'm going to be amongst the boys and get the job done today, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's, when guys get out, that's few and far between. I know so many people that are guys that get out and they're stuck in these jobs, which out of necessity, they're like, I have to provide for my family, but they're miserable. They're like, I don't like what I'm doing, but I'm stuck. And I think you guys have found a way to have a job that's purposeful, that's enjoyable, that, like you said, it's community.
Yeah.
And it's the team room space again. And, it's awesome. It's been awesome.
It's a testament to being amongst your tribe. And Tom and I say this all the time, like we could start a new business around Stronghold shoveling shit. And it would be fun because I'm doing it with you guys.
Yeah.
Right. And we would set goals to be the #1 shit shoveling company in the whole world. And we would be outstanding at it. So what, the work is the work is the work. We're going to work. We're all going to wake up and we're going to get busy solving problems. But to me, it's being with your tribe. And it's that waking up and going, what is the next set of problems? What's this next Rubik's Cube that I'm going to try to solve today?
Yeah.
And you get to do it with your buddies.
Yeah. And I think it's awesome that you guys hired Robert on as the operations manager. And I think that is going to be a huge
Isn't he
difference.
awesome?
Yeah. He's, dude,
Salt of the
fantastic
earth,
guy. Just, you can tell he's super organized.
Super humble.
Yeah. Humble, but
Yeah.
he's a worker
Yep.
too. He's like, let's get whatever we need to get done.
I had to force him to not come in one of the Mondays. He was going to drive a different direction and then come back, and I was like, stay home.
Yeah.
Take a day off. You'll be fine. Yeah.
So if you had any words of wisdom for guys that are getting out, looking to, do the next thing in the civilian world, what would it be?
I would say that while it's tempting to try to figure it out on your own, there's a better answer. And I think if you are a true SOF guy, you're looking for the optimal solution. You're looking for the best answer. And I'm here to tell you that I tried to do it on my own getting out, and I know a lot of guys that try to do it. Lean on your network of guys. Have your conversations early. Float your resume. Do personality assessments. Go to meet and greets. Take your wife with you. Introduce your wife to guys that are on the outside with her wife. Be a SOF guy. Play the game and understand that you are now leaving an ecosystem. And this is going to offend some guys. You're leaving a socialism-like ecosystem where everything is taken care of for you.
Yep.
You're told where to be, right place, right time, right uniform. You show up, you do a job between left and right. Here's your backstop. Here's your sandbox to play in. When you get into this world, again, you're at zero. You are at zero, and I would encourage all the guys to recognize and look for that optimal solution. That while yes, you can go do it on your own, and you will likely find success at some point because you have that SOF background and that never quit attitude. I would encourage you to go lean on your network of guys that are in the current ecosystem. Gather that information like you're on a PDSS, and prep the battlefield for when you step out and you can hit the ground running.
Nice.
Yeah, I think what Brandon just said, it definitely hits home with me. And I think one of Brandon's talents, like a true SF guy, is leveraging people to do things synergistically, right? And I the reason why that has such a strong influence on me is I have the ranger mentality where I try to do everything myself, and I take pride in doing that, but that's not always the best way to do stuff. So I totally agree with what he said. I think as far as my advice would go, I'll try to tell it via an anecdote. What I've noticed in talking with guys, my peer group that have gotten out, it seems like the thing that guys struggle with the most is that SOF identity is such a core part of their being. It's hard to let it go.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should take pride in that, right? But when you get into different communities of people, so for me, for example, I went from Ranger Regiment to being in a science lab in San Diego. That type of person over there, polar opposite of the SOF. So you got to let that go. And I think the most important thing is you got to find your new identity and or your new purpose. Find that new purpose. If you can find that new thing that makes you happy and you strive towards that, you're going to be successful. I think it's the guys that hold on to that for too long and they struggle while they get out.
For sure. They can't let go of what they were in the past. And and I've heard people say this, like, oh, now's your time to reinvent yourself, which I sort of disagree with. I'm like, you don't need to reinvent who you are. You coming from whatever special operations community, you have so many skills that civilians that are, successful in their 40s or 50s don't have. Mm-hmm. But you need to reinvent the way that you go about doing business, right? Because we are all, in our different communities, we're in a bubble, right? When I was in, it was like all I knew was the SEAL community. And I was like, that's all I hung out with. That's all, that was it. And when you come out of that, you're having to meet new people. I think it's hard for guys, because they're like, oh, well, they're not the same. They're just not the same as us. It's like, no, they're not. But that doesn't mean you have to change who you are to adapt to be around them. stick to who you are, but learn how to talk to other people, learn how to make relationships with different individuals who might have, you know, a different sets of skill sets than you have, and you can use those, like adapt those, and they're probably getting something from you too, right? Learn to have those reciprocal relationships, and you will be able to flourish, you know. And I think a lot of guys, that's the hard thing for them to do is, one, to adapt to the new environment that they're in the civilian environment, which blows my mind because we are so used to adapting to our different environments when we're deployed or whatever. But the other one is to reach out and ask for help. It's like you can't do it on your own. And I know, like, the Ranger mentality, it's almost like, you know, the SEAL thing too, right? We're like, no, I can do this. Whatever task is given me, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it, you know, probably on my own, or, you know, with a buddy. But at the same time, you need to reach out and ask, right? And ask for help, and also delegate.
Sure.
Right? Don't take on so much that you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Really agree.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. I will say this, man, you know, after you guys have told your stories, Tom, and everything, it's a testament to your character, to both of you, that you stand up and do the right thing, even when everything's stacked against you, right? You know, Tom, you got a pretty funny story, but I after you told me that the first time, I'm like, it's your character and backbone is strong, man. You're like not going to fold for anybody. And Brandon, you've showed that to me since I've started working at the range, you know. And you know, we've, of course, from my background, everything that happened to me, you know, with the certain units that we've trained, and especially with the Florida State Guard, the media comes out and they're like, oh, they like to use me as a punching bag, and you guys have not backed down from that. So I know I've told you that before, but it's that's also few and far between. Yeah. I know there's other places that would have been like, hey, man, we can't have this,
right? You
know, but you guys have stood strong and stuck with me and my family, and that means more to me than anything.
You
so
bet.
I truly appreciate that, man. Looking forward to what Stronghold is going to do in the future. I mean, it's only up from here. I think, like you said, you guys have gone through the worst of it, and now it's time to blow this thing up. So
I'm pumped, man.
Yeah,
I'm
buddy.
super optimistic, and I'm beyond excited about what the next few seasons look like for us. And back at you, Eddie. What I would say is listening to your book and listening to the audio book, and obviously hearing the story from you directly. I think as soon as you got here, I said, hey, man, what happened, right? And you shared that, and then the book came out, and I audio booked it. And to me, you know, as you lay out, you became the punching bag for someone who was looking to persecute you and make a career name for himself. And you got wrapped up with some dudes that had an interesting mentality and some interesting value sets, it seems like. But, you know, I appreciate your story for what you shared when you got into the brig and what you had to go through, and when you're truly backed into a wall, you know, who you had to turn to, and where you find your faith now. So I think those are all things where our values align. So, you know, whatever comes our way, when the value systems are so deep and ingrained, and you can agree on those things, the rest is minutia.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
And I'm so pumped to be in community with you guys, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. We are definitely blessed where we're at. I'm thankful for it each day.
Awesome,
man. All right. Well, we're out.
All right, brother.